Hi all, my name is Debasis Pati. I'm working as a senior solution architect in Azure area especially. I have a good amount of experience both in AWS and Azure, and I have around 6 years of experience on cloud transformations, along with total years of experience more than 20 years. Yeah. Thanks Gavaskar to inviting me for this community session, and thanks to all who have joined this session just for a knowledge building. Okay, so today's topic, what I will try to explain you, like what exactly Azure subscription works on an enterprise scale roadmap actually. So that is what I will try to explain. This topic is very vast actually in terms of how to do that, what all approach are there. But what I am trying to do within this 1 hour is trying to cover the high level concepts behind it, because it's more practical concept, but I will take you through, more the fundamental and the, approach that normally recommended from Microsoft's and based on the cloud adoption framework. Okay, so I'm not very sure how many of the attendees are well aware of cloud, but let me start with a little bit reiterating or recapturing the cloud concept. So how Microsoft Azure works, in a way, I mean, this is how other clouds also work. So it's very generic that it starts with a region. So region is a geography basically, and there are many regions within the world where actually where data centers are there, and that is where the Microsoft Azure start operating basically. Now within a region there are availability zone. So basically region is a geography, and within that geography there are many data centers, and each data centers or a combination of data centers are known as availability zone, and each region have availability zones basically. Okay, so one availability zone can have one or more data centers. Now each availability zone or each data center within a region, they are connected with a very high performant network. And why a high performant network? Because it's more about the resiliency and the response time. Okay, so it's practically around the latency around less than 2 milliseconds within a region. Okay, now it is zero redundant or zonal capability, zone redundant or general capability. So what is zone redundant? Zone redundant is more about let's say failover happens, so it the failover automatically transmit to the next availability zone within a geography or within a region basically. And what is zonal capability? Zonal capability is the failover happens within that zone actually. So that is the basic difference. So now Microsoft Azure is capable of zone redundant in many of the services. So it means it can even going to a different region, it can fail over to a different zone within the Azure region actually, Azure region. Now a similar setup can happen in disaster recovery region as well. So that is completely a different geography where this scenario can be replicated to a different region for any disasters happen actually within that region, let's say. Now conceptually each DC or each data center is mapped to a physical zone, and each physical zone mapped to a logical zone basically from a Microsoft conceptual pattern. And then we come to a subscription, which is more like end user driven topology. So each subscription mapped to a logical zone. So that is how you can map a Azure subscription, and then you can start working within your organizations. Okay, so that is how it on a high level looks like. Okay, now what is a subscription? So a subscription is a logical container where all Azure resources run. So basically when you are thinking of a workload, that is nothing but a combination of a lot of services, ES, PaaS or anything, And those services that is planned for your workload or use case, that always runs within a subscription. So that is you can say a logical container where all your services runs. Okay, so that is all about how a subscription starts from the lower level. Now, little bit of Azure terminology that will definitely help in our subsequent discussion is I have already explained. So subscription is a logical container where your Azure resources runs. And what is a resource? A resource is nothing but any services that comes within Azure, be it ES or PaaS or SaaS. So, for example, a virtual machines, Windows or Linux, that's a ES, where you create your own VMs basically. PaaS are all the services that basically running within the Microsoft data centers. So the benefit of PaaS is you are not going to, or the DevOps engineers or the DevOps teams, they are not going to maintain the infrastructure, and rather they will focus on the application part. So that is more a PaaS. And SaaS is any capability or software capability that comes with Azure. So those are resources that always stay within a subscription. Now, what is an account? Account is more a logical boundary attached to an email ID or organization ID, whatever you can say, just for the billing and cost purpose. Billing and cost, why it is required? Because it, again, cloud comes with cost, right? So pay as you go or whatever way, there are different mechanism of calculating cost to use different services. So that is more account. Now, what is Azure Active Directory? It is the identity and access management mechanism within Azure. So that is Azure Active Directory. And what is AD tenant? AD tenant is nothing but it's a dedicated instance of Azure Active Directory. Okay, so that is more a physical form of Azure Active Directory, or where it get hosted basically. Okay. Now resource groups, again, within the subscription, you have n number of resource group, where the resource group is nothing but a logical grouping of related resources. So when you say related resources, mean those resources or those services that is meant for your workload is the logical grouping basically, and that always stays within a resource group. Okay. Now management group concept is little bit higher than resource group. So so basically why management group is used to define your policies, compliance, whatever a organization generally needs in a cloud operations basically. And that management group can have multiple resource groups. Okay, so one management group can have multiple resource group. One resource group can have multiple services based on your logical requirement, and everything is governed by a tenant basically, or a Active Directory. So that is how it works fundamentally. Now, before we go to enterprise scale or the landing zone, basically, let's a little bit discuss on what design strategies are generally followed as a approach for the subscription actually. So a subscription design is most important while adopting cloud within an organization. Okay, so that is the topmost fundamental things when you start with adopting any services building or use case building within the cloud. Okay, so there are different type of strategy. You can also get it from Microsoft's if you want to deep dive more into it, but I will just give you a high level view. So first one is workload strategy. So workload strategy is nothing but when you have different workload, you just kind of categorize those workloads into prod or non-prod environment, and then you always have one management group. So what it means is you have a clear policy and compliance guidelines that cater to both non-prod and prod environment. And within non-prod also you have multiple subscription with different workloads like app 1, app 2, application 1, application 2, all this. So that is where this strategy comes. But what happens is if it is a small organizations, or you do not have much of requirement, this kind of strategy works. But when the workloads keeps growing, let's year on year, then it may not work. Then you have to segregate your workload from different dimensions. For example, the criticality of the use case or the application, what are the security requirement for the applications, data compliance, etc., and other factors as well. So in that kind of a transformations, let's say your workloads are going repeatedly across years, then you have to adopt for an application strategy. Okay, so what it is that the building of management group, which was earlier in workload strategy, was catering to both non-prod and prod workload. Now you can define different management group for prod and non-prod as well, based on these parameters like business criticality of the application, security requirement of the application, data requirement of the application. You can divide the management group altogether. Okay, and now you can also segregate the environments of your organizations, for example, development environment, production environment, acceptance environment, into these categories. Okay, so that is how this strategy works. Now there are different other strategies also. For example, functional strategy. So functional strategy is more related to the same concept. Let's say you have a lot of departments within your organization or business functions you are dealing with, then you can also divide your management group accordingly. Okay, department wise, functions wise, all these things. So for example, IT, sales, finance, all these things. So that is where functional strategy comes into picture. Okay. Similarly, for geography strategy, I'm not going depth into it because of time constraint. So geography strategy is more about, like, let's say you as your organizations, you have a lot of entities attached in different geographies. Then you can also segregate that. Okay, in geography strategy. Now, coming to the mixed strategy is nothing but mixed of everything. So whatever we have so far seen, like application strategy, functional strategy, geography strategy, those, if you keep adding based on the requirements, those things within a single strategy, that is mixed strategy. Okay, so for example, let's say you want to segregate your workload based on different parameters, as well as you want to segregate workloads based on your business function. Okay, so that is a good example of mixed strategy, where you can define what kind of management group you will be dealing with based on your requirement. Okay, so that is how it works. So fundamentally, for any strategy, when you are designing a subscription, you have a management group. Okay, and then within that management group, you can design your subscription. So it's within the subscription, again, resource group will have all the workload with different services. So that is how it translates into. Okay, now coming to the main concept, which is the topic of today, is what is landing zone and what is enterprise scale. Okay, so before that, let's first discuss about what is a platform. Okay, so platform in a cloud or anywhere, it is nothing but it's a combinations of the core components like networking, identity, platform management services, all these things. Okay, so basically, platform gives you the network capability, the identity capability, the service capability. Okay, so if you sum up everything, then it comes as a platform. Okay, so now if you map these things into Azure specific things, then yes, again, this is a logical boundary which is called subscription. Okay, so within that subscription, you can have all this component included. Okay, so that is how a platform is called, basically. Okay, so that is a platform. Now, Azure landing zone is an output of multiple Azure subscription. Okay, so based on your organizational requirement, you may end off with a lot of subscriptions. Okay, based on your requirement, and a common approach towards that subscription comes out as a landing zone. Okay, so an Azure landing zone is an output of multiple Azure subscription, and which is meant for scale, security, governance, networking, and identity. Okay, so these are the dimension which is always aligned to a landing zone, and that caters across the subscription as a general principle. Okay, and why it is required? Because when you are an organizations and you have lot of use cases to deal with, then it always enables a uniform approach across your line of business or business requirement, whatever you say, and it will make your cloud adoption journey faster, okay, with all this security, governance, and networking attached to it, okay. So that is how it comes into picture. Now an enterprise can create their own design or customize their own design based on their specific need, okay. That means how to create a landing zone for your own requirement, how to cater those into different subscription to, you know, host different workload. That is the organization choice that it can be customized. Now what is an enterprise scale? Enterprise scale is a part of cloud adoption framework. I will give you a little brief about what is cloud adoption framework. That always comes with some architectural guidance and from Azure best practices to run the show. Okay, so enterprise scale is nothing but a fundamental concept based from cloud adoption framework from Microsoft again, and it comes with a lot of architectural principle and some best practices to deal with this kind of a landing zone concept. Okay, so that is how it works. So a platform is a static concept where you have all components like network, identity, platform, management services. Azure landing zone is summation of subscriptions aligned with security, governance, networking, and identity based on your requirement. It, you know, faster your migration journey in a defined and secure way. You can customize it on top of the best framework based on your requirement. And enterprise scale is nothing but an architectural guidance and best practices from cloud adoption framework. So that is how it is. Okay. Now, okay, this I have taken from Microsoft again. You can refer to this link, and it gives a lot of details of what is cloud adoption framework. But in a nutshell, this is the flow, how it works actually. So the first one is define strategy. So what is define strategy? It means, let's say, an organization is starting for cloud. Okay, it doesn't have anything now. It is now thinking for a cloud adoption. Okay, so they have to figure out like what is the motivation behind it. Okay, what is the business outcomes behind it. So let's say if you're adopting cloud, what is the business benefit? Okay, business justification of that. So that is more about a strategy. So first define a strategy for cloud adoption. Now the second one is planning that strategy. Okay, what it means is whether you are skill ready or not to adopt cloud. Okay, do you have a cloud adoption plan? Okay, how it is aligned to the organization. So these are all is more a planning strategy. Now that next come is the ready. Ready is more about what are the implementation option, how you create a landing zone or the concept of landing zone. Okay, so those is more ready, and adopt is when you start practicing it. So that is adopt. Okay, so that is migrate or modernize or do more innovation. So that is adopt. And once you completed with adopt, that means you have started working in cloud. Then most important thing is manage that platform. Okay, so manage means SLA driven model, operational requirement, maturity, all these things is managed in a secured way. Okay, so security also you have to maintain. Okay, with a governance framework. So that is how it looks like on a high level. If you want to understand more about it, you can definitely refer to these links and go deep dive into it as well. Okay, so there are lots of techniques, tools, framework available from Microsoft, which actually, help you to achieve these functional building blocks. Actually, so this is cloud adoption framework. Now, okay. Now this enterprise scale is based on 5 design principles. These are the most important things actually, and it is and this is also based on 8 technical design areas basically. So that probably I will try to discuss more on this actually. Okay, so the first design principle for enterprise scale is subscription democratization. Okay, so why it is required? It is required to attain speed, agility, and more control. Okay, so when you are actually adopting a cloud approach or Microsoft Azure you are adopting within your organization. So this basically helps you to gain the speed, agility, and control. Okay, so so what it means practically is enabling the business unit to provision subscription. So that is where your workload will land up with. Okay, to support your design development. Okay, both in migration and non-migration use case. Okay, so that is subscription democratization. So very simple to provision subscription. The way you provision subscription to support your design and development. Okay. Now, policy-driven governance. Okay, so policy-driven governance, how it starts basically. So you translate all your functional requirements as well as your non-functional requirement in a policy-driven way. Okay, so for example, I'm just giving a simple example is you want to store data in your cloud platform with encrypted way. So that is a policy. Okay, that you can translate into a policy, and that policy you can apply it to the platform across. Okay, or across the subscription. Okay, or more on a management group level that will control this kind of a policy across the subscription. Okay, so that is called policy driven governance. So this can also be functional policy if possible. Okay, so now coming to single control and management plan. What it means is a seamless experience to both platform and DevOps capability. So there are platform engineers in an organization, there are DevOps engineers in an organization to deal with Azure subscription and other resources running within that subscription. So they should get a seamless experience to maintain that platform basically. Okay, based on their roles and compliance guidance. Okay, so that is what it says. So it tries to avoid any explicit use of tool or roles to manage that platform, rather than it's a unified seamless experience by using different tools provided by Microsoft Azure. Now, application centric and archetype neutral, what it is to adopt more cloud native patterns. Okay, both for years and past. So basically it is more than just lift and shift. Okay, so for example, let's say there is an application running in a non-cloud platform, and that you want to take it to a cloud platform. So it is not that it is just a lift that application and put it in the cloud, rather than you have to think that how it will fit into the cloud. Okay, probably a redesign of that is required to put it in the cloud. Okay, by adopting different cloud native way of working. Okay, that means for the entire organization, you have to create a foundations or the guidelines of what exactly is required to make your non-cloud applications run into cloud platform. So that is application centric principle. Azure native design is more about adopting native services of Azure. Okay, so native services means, for example, be it messaging, be it container, be it a database, be it security. Try to use as much as cloud native services to have more control. Okay, so when you say more control, practically it means is let's say you are using a messaging systems of Microsoft Azure, and there is a problem happens, then if it is a native application, then you have more control to scale it, rectify it, and other way of working. Okay, so that is more cloud native adoption. So these are the 5 design principles of enterprise scale. Now coming to the design areas. So what are design areas? It maps business and technical requirements to Azure capabilities to build the platform and associated landing zone. Okay, so we have already discussed a platform, a landing zone, enterprise scale. Okay, now when you technically try to convert it, then this business and technical requirements to Azure capabilities to build the platform and associated landing zone. So what you need to take care, okay, within Azure landing zones basically to achieve this. Okay, the first one is enterprise agreement enrollment and Azure Active Directory tenant. So what it means is, when you are starting adopting this kind of a concept within Microsoft Azure, then you have to very closely think about what kind of subscription or the license you have to take care of. Okay, so maybe for dev and test, it's a the dev kind of environment, it can be different, or for a prod kind of environment, it can be different. Okay, so there are different kind of enrollment possible in Microsoft Azure. For example, enterprise, then CSP, pay as you go, all these things. Okay, so that is more about choose an active subscription offer results into effective costing. So that will also result in a costing efficiency. Now, the tenant or the Active Directory, what we have discussed, whether it is scale enough for your future demands also. Okay, so future demands means if the workloads gets increasing within your organization, then whether it is okay to have a single tenant or multi-tenant. Okay, so that is more about enterprise agreement. Now, the second one is identity and access management. So how is it going to be controlled? Okay, so creating an unified approach for identity access management. So what it means is how to authenticate a user. I mean, whoever are accessing the cloud platform, whoever services or users are accessing, how to authenticate a user, how to assigning specific role to a user to access a resource within Azure. Okay, separation of responsibility. For example, a developers should have different responsibility than an operational engineer. Okay, so those are the identity access mechanisms, and you have to create an approach, a standard approach for that. So that is more identity and access management. Now, when your workloads will be more, you have n number of workloads running in the organization. So management group and subscription organization also needs to be thought through. Okay, so why? Because to deal with a consistent and unified approach to deal with those resources for all the workloads. Okay, possibly by example tagging with something, naming it the resources properly. Okay, so those are the management group and subscription organizations design area. Now, this is network topology and connectivity is also a very important factor when you design your enterprise scale. Is what it deals with. It creates it is an approach to create a network architecture. What it means, when you have a public workload running on Azure or use case running on Azure, then how it will be connected, how that service will connect to public or private. Do you need a firewall or not? What is your IP assignment approach? Okay, what is the network, and within the network, what is the subnets things? So those are all more of the network topology and connectivity design area. Okay, so now once you have built up all those things, then the next one is management and monitoring. You have to manage the resources running, okay, and how to optimize it. All those things that comes into picture. Okay, so you have to create an approach to ensure the SLA operations of cloud environments, evaluation and operational management tool. Okay, so how to optimize your workload capacity. What is the patch management strategy for IS workloads? Those are all comes under this design area. Okay. Now, what is business connectivity and disaster recovery? This is more we discussed even in the first slide, is whether you have to go for a zone redundancy, zonal redundant, or a disaster recovery to a different region. So that approach you have to, the organization has to come up with, okay, based on the RTO and RPO requirement. So recovery time objective, recovery point objective. Okay, criticality of the applications and other factors that comes into this approach basically. Whether you need when you are creating a high availability scenario, whether you need an active scenario, active passive scenario, all these things that comes in this design approach. Okay, whether you need a geo application capability or not, what kind of backup recovery you want to deal with, all these things that comes in business connectivity and disaster recovery. And next thing is, and most important thing is the governance model. Okay, so when you say governance, it's a use area. Okay, so it also covers deployment, how to deploy resources, how to do a cost management, how to do network deployment, how you'll achieve regulatory compliance. So all these things. So it's a very use area, and it also plays a very important role in terms of scaling your workload, basically Azure use cases. So that is so these are the points that need to be taken care in Azure governance. Okay, and this is more about the development of the DevOps methodology. Okay, so platform automation and DevOps. So it is nothing but an approach to define different deployment standards. Okay, so what it means more about source code management, be it platform or the applications. What kind of source code management? So see, what will be your CI/CD approach, standard pipelines, segregation of roles and responsibility, all these things. So that comes under this platform automation and DevOps area. So these are nothing but the approach that an organization has to create to cover all these design areas. Okay, so this is more about the design area. So this is what I want to cover in a very nutshell or very high level. There are a lot of documentation available in Microsoft Azure where you can get especially the CAP, the Cloud Adoption Framework, tools and techniques basically based on different requirement. Those documentations are there. These are more practical approach of design areas, how to cover all these principles, and then you can start thinking of adopting this best practice architectural principle and best practices to scale off your Azure subscription basically. So that is what I wanted to share in today's sessions.
And that's the end of the session. I hope you enjoyed the session, and thank you, Debasis, on behalf of Multi-Cloud for you, and on behalf of Multi-Cloud for your team, we like to thank you, Debasis.
Thank you, Oscar. Thanks all.